Ladies, gentlemen, we might have a chance. That's right, we're back post primary. Crazy couple of days. Just lost my light. I recorded for a few minutes and then I realized my microphone wasn't working. So it's just turning out to be another Thursday night. No big deal. We're gonna move on. For everybody who might have missed it, which I doubt that you did, Mike Braun has been elected in the primary to run for Indiana governor. And it's not that surprising that he won. What's more surprising of the people that got in second and third place. And here's why. I did not expect Suzanne Crouch to get such high of numbers. Brad Chambers, I thought he was going to be number two or number four because he was such an unlikable person. He had such a terrible idea. He ran the Leap project. He was stealing money or stealing water, or he wanted to steal water from a different county and give it to Boone County. Doden, I thought would be top two or three for sure. The most surprising one, though, was Curtis Hill getting dead last, which is crazy to me. So crazy that he got beat by a person who doesn't even have a profile pic. What a massive loss. Oh my God. I mean, sorry, Curtis, but you're just not going to be able to be an elected position anymore unless you move into a different state. But I do not recommend you go and sandbag in anything. And here's kind of the reason why I thought it was weird. These are the Republican county results, and they can go on here. I'll put the link on at the bottom. Brad Chambers won Marion County, and we know why. Because there was a billboard to that was like a left wanting to turn voters more left, and that billboard the people that put up that billboard endorsed Brad Chambers. So we knew that people from the Democrat Party were going to move over to the Republican Party just to vote. Because when you're in there, you can't just have it's not a la carte when it comes to voting. When you go in there, it says Republican or Democrat, and then all you get is that Republican or Democrat, and it doesn't matter what you voted before. You just get to do it. So that's why Chambers won. Uh, what was kind of wild was that Eric Doden, who's from the Fort Wayne area, he's still gotten second. Like he's only got 21%. No surprise for Crouch and Warwick and Vanderburg. That's where she's from. And everywhere else, you can check it out. What was in Lake Braun? Got that one. How did he? And there's McCormick too. This is actually really good to predict of how the general is going to go because, like, I'm from Lake County. Uh, Braun only got 9,700, uh, and McCormick got 20,000. But if you add all these together, or is that 12, 14? Yeah, then a good chance that McCormick wins that district. Yeah, it's going to be kind of wild during the general election, but I was really curious of who was going to be the running mate for Braun because I had heard that Tom Dramati, the mayor of LaPorte, Indiana, that he was going to be, but then it got announced yesterday that Julie McGuire is going to be the running mate, which I'm not a fan of. I absolutely do not like this thing whatsoever. Now, for those who don't know, Julie McGuire is a state rep. She's in Perry Township, and she's establishment. I can't make it any sweeter than that. Uh, she got $500,000 to primary out John Jacob, and let me show you right there. Now, normally, I would say normally that when you have a primary, when it's two people in the same party that are going head to head, the party is not going to get affiliated with it. They're not, has nothing to do with it. Maybe unless they're an incumbent. But they did the complete opposite on this one. John Jacob was the incumbent, and they gave, or you can't see it right here. Whoop. Right here, almost $500,000 to primary out John Jacob, which she ended up doing. Now, John Jacob is actually a really good guy. I've met him a few times. He was part of the reason, if not the reason, why Indiana is a constitutional carry state now, because he was pushing that bill forever. Well, actually, I think it was Kurt Knisley, but then John Jacob got elected, and they were able to get it over the finish line. Kind of the same thing with the abortion stuff, but whatever on that. During the lockdowns, Knisley and Jacob were very against it. They wanted everything reopened up. They were very liberty minded. They still are. So they primaried out John Jacob and Kurt Knisley because the establishment GOP gave each of them $500,000 to primary out Knisley and Jacob, which is, obviously really bad because Micah Beckwith, he's running for lieutenant governor. He's been doing it for a while, which is why they had started a PC project and state delegate project, because the people don't choose the lieutenant governor. The governor does not even choose the lieutenant governor. Who chooses it are the state delegates who are part of the party. So next month in June, everybody that is a state delegate, they will be voting for the lieutenant governor. They'll be voting for the AG, the attorney general. I thought there was one more, but I can't remember. But those are the two main ones that they're going to be voting on. And so I don't think Micah will have enough delegates. Also, in hindsight, things got really goofed up because everybody was running for a delegate, and now you're separating all the vote instead of just getting the people that you want as a delegate. I think what their plan was to try and take delegate votes out of the establishment people, but it ended up doing complete opposite. The complete opposite. Somehow I got like 300 delegate votes, even though I was on the very last page because of W for Whitmer. Um, but Micah, I think would have been a really good pick. I think it would have been a good pick. That's all I'm going to leave it at. I'm not going to start any crap. I already have my opinion on Micah. Overall, a good guy. And I think he would have been more on the side of the people than Julie McGuire over here. Uh, totally establishment. I don't know why they chose her out of everybody in the state. My only theory is because they want a woman in there so they can get the boomer vote. Because here's the thing about votes, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, looking at other primary races too, because there are a couple that are just crazy. Uh, Boomers are really horny batch. I hate to break it to you. Boomer and Gen Xers are very feisty, and they are very much controlled by their wives as well. And a lot of these Republican women are not conservatives, at least in the party. When you're going to some of these meets, when you're going to events and everything, a lot of these Republican women are not conservatives. They're like right on the edge of liberal. They're fiscally conservative, yeah, but socially, they're more liberal for sure. And if you have been to the events that I have been and seen the things that I have seen, you would understand that for sure. It is everything that you would think of, basically, and a little bit more. Very funny stuff most of the time. So, this is the Marion County unofficial results. This is why I think I actually have a chance because the voter turnout wasn't really that great. We're going to talk about that. It was 13.54%. When I saw everything getting tabulated, I was thinking it was going to be 12%. A little bit off, no big deal. But remember, and I've talked about this so many times, the voter rolls are wrong. They need to be updated. We don't even know if some of these people are alive or not, and we're going to talk about that too here in a second. Um, and I have been hearing that people last year during the city council meeting that people are going out and double checking the votes, and they have been finding out that people don't even live at that address anymore. that they voted in. So, is there some voter fraud? Maybe. Can you prove it? It's hard to say, but I've showed this in the last video. There were people that registered to vote back when Barry did his first term, and they haven't voted since. But they're showing that they're active. Like, these voter rolls need to be updated. There needs to be a rule that if you haven't voted, 4 to 6 years, like, you're just off. There's no reason for it. There's a governor's race every 4 years. There's things going wrong in your local community, especially in Indianapolis. There's absolutely no excuse for that, especially when you have a month to vote, which is, crazy, but that's its own thing. Um, but they just need to be updated because I guarantee you this will be more like 25, 30, probably even more. When the general hits, it'll probably be closer to 40% turnout. I would bet anyway. So moving on, we saw that Andre Carson definitely spanked everybody else. And here's the other thing too: the Trump and the Haley ticket. Haley has not been. She dropped her out of her campaign a few months ago, but somehow she was still on the primary ticket. I don't understand how. I don't know if it's an Indiana thing where like at this date, if as long as you have your signatures, then you're on the ballot no matter what. But if afterwards you drop out, you're still on the ballot. But we knew who these Nikki Haley votes are. They're mostly Democrats that went over to the Republican Party. Same thing with Brad Chambers. It's no surprise at all. When we look at this one, this one did not make any sense at all. This is the uh, Congress one with Shreve in it. Now, we knew that the top four people were John Jacob, Jefferson Shreve, Mike Speedy, and Jamison Carrier. For some reason, I kept calling him Jamison Crowder, but I think that's a football player. But Shreve won. And I don't know how, especially after his whole gun thing. He did miserable in the mayor's race. He should have done better, but he didn't because everybody that I talked to were not in support of him. Especially the whole gun thing is like, dude, you're a Republican. You should be crazy 2A, but you're not. You're wanting to change the gun laws. So I'm going to call it right now. It's probably not going to be true, but I'm just going to throw the tinfoil hat theory out there for you. I think that Shreve might sabotage his own campaign so he could let a Democrat win. Even if he does win, he will still be the rhino for that side of Indiana. He will, he is definitely more moderate of a Republican, and he has admitted that many, many times that he's more of a moderate Republican. Um, but John Jacob, man, I can't believe how bad he did. He got endorsed by Thomas Massey, who's, obviously he is a Liberty Republican, very pro freedom. And I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why he did so bad. My guessing is because Shreve has so much money and he was probably just loading people out with mailers. And he had a billboard on 37 going towards the highway. He had so many commercials. And he just, he has so much FU money. And you just can't compete with that when you have a guy that's got 100 mil sitting in the bank. I mean, he spent $14 million of his own money and lost the mayor's race. It's just bananas. But it really does tell you, like, the voters are kind of dumb. And they're very uneducated on the people that they're voting for. Which leads me to District 7. This, if anybody ever says voters are not dumb, I will point them to this primary race. Who is in it? Philip Davis, Jen Pace, Catherine Pink, and Gabe Whitley. Gabe Whitley did really, really bad, and that's probably because of the WIBC people. They just went on a giant tangent against him. It was Rob Kendall, it was Abdul Hakim Shabazz, and a lot of the other WIBC hosts. There was even a guy that posted on Twitter who was like, "I voted for a dead woman because F Gabe Whitley," basically what he said. And so who ended up winning? Well, it was the dead woman. That's right. A dead person won a primary. And so now there'll have to be a special election, but it's not from the people. It's going to be from the precinct committeeman, which officially I won. So I can always say that I have won a primary and won an election. Ta-da! Election winner, Whitmer. Win with Whitmer. Win with Whitmer. So that one's going to be completely fireworks. I have my ear to the ground really close on that one because it's going to get crazy. Um, I can't tell any information right now. All I know is it's going to get wild. But this just shows how dumb voters are. I mean, this woman has been dead since March, and the party didn't even release it for a couple of weeks. And obviously, I was going to vote for Gabe anyway, mostly because I don't know who these people are. But I was definitely not going to vote for Jen Pace. She's dead, but somehow she won. And I, hate to be beating up a dead body on this one, but we cannot minimize this at all of how dumb voters are when they allow a dead person to win. All right. All of those voters should be ashamed of themselves for even doing that. Whether it's a joke, whether it's revenge for Gabe, or like they're actually did not know. But it does go with my theory that if there is a woman on the ticket, there is a very high chance that she wins because boomers are horny, Gen X people are horny, and well, a lot of millennials are much smarter and much more aware of who they're voting for. Whether they like the person or not is a completely different thing, but at least they would know. I would love to get the voter roll on this race and find out what the age bracket was for people, just in general. The problem is in the voter roll, you don't know who they voted for. It'll just be Republican, but that really doesn't matter. We just need to know what the age range was. So moving on, I'll put this link on the bottom too. Uh, photos. Back to the Haley and Trump race. Twerp Roberts, who is a city councilman who has no full-time job and lives with his parents, spent a lot of time on gathering data for this thing. I'm not exactly sure how he got some of this data because none of it's really been released. But he even says, "We're in spite of Nikki Haley being out of the race for months, she still cracked 22% of the vote statewide." Well, we know why, because those are Democrat voters. And the fact that this kid does not know it really does show how much of an idiot he is. Like, read in between the lines. We know why it is. There was a literal billboard for people to not vote Democrat and to vote Republican so they could get Brad Chambers in. Like, pull your head out of your ass, Nick. Jeez. Stupid children, I'm telling you. Maybe we should raise the age to run for office because obviously this dipshit doesn't know what the hell is going on. But even go back to the primary races, a few other things too. Was there was Mike Young and Philip Clay. Mike Young ended up winning in the if you we could look at the results from the Marion County, but it's mostly just Wayne Township. But Mike Young slaughtered Philip Clay and Wayne Township. I think the biggest worry was Hendricks County because Philip Clay is in Plainfield, and all he really has done is done stuff in Hendricks County. I've never seen him at any Marion County events at all. I've only seen him. I've actually only met him like one time, which was a watch along party that the Hendricks County GOP was putting together. But Jim Lucas, this was another thing I think where the party was trying to primary him out because this Villa is a former GOP member of the West Virginia House of Delegates and now a high school history and government teacher. I think the party was trying to get somebody against old Jimmy Jack Daniels Lucas because if you remember last year, he was a little bit boozed up on some whiskey and probably a little bit of gummies because they found THC in him as well during the blood test. So remember, folks, Don't smoke and drive. Don't smoke and drive when you've already been boozing it up. But he ended up winning, so now he just has the general election to worry about. We'll see how that whole thing turns out. I really thought Jim Lucas was going to lose, but he escaped out at the very last second. Good for him. They were bitching about him flashing a holstered gun, which they're not exactly wrong on that. But if I don't know if any of you have seen the video where it was a bunch of protesters went to the state house to talk about gun laws, and Jim Lucas was talking to some, I think it was mostly like 18-year-olds. It wasn't really children. It was during a class. It was young, yeah. Raised hours when he briefly flashed a holster gun. Well, at least they didn't say children, because at the very beginning they were saying like, "Oh, he flashed his gun to kids." Dude, they were like 18, 19-year-olds, and a bunch of old women. And basically, what had happened is that Lucas was talking to them, and they were talking about guns. He's like, "Well, it's not the gun, it's the person." And they're like, "What? Do you have a gun?" He's like, "Yeah, I got one right here." And he just lifted his jacket back, and there it is, a holstered gun. And he just put it back, and he's not thinking anything of it. And quite honestly, I might have done the same thing, because I think me and old Jimmy Lucas are cut from that same portion of like, what's the big deal, and trying to show it to people. But everybody takes everything so out of context. It's just so many soft people out there as well, and it's so damn annoying. But old Jimmy Lucas, he even said later was, yeah, probably not the best idea. Which, maybe not. He won his primary. Moving on to the general election, but here is another one I wanted to talk about, and this was State Rep 490. Where is it? Yeah. Andrew Ireland, Tim McVeigh, David Waters, and Elizabeth Williams. Andrew Ireland barely got out of this race alive. Uh, when I was watching this one, there was a handful of races I was really interested in, and this one was really interesting because Elizabeth Williams was about to win, but she ended up losing by what, 93 votes? That's all. And I was getting kind of annoyed because uh, not because she's a woman, but because there's just so many horny guys out there that are like, "Oh, look at this blonde lady. She's so cute looking. I'm just going to vote for her." And then their wives are probably telling them, it's like, "You need to vote for this woman. We need more women in office." Probably that. But like, I've talked to Andrew Ireland a couple of times. Very nice guy. I think he'll do just fine if he does win the general election. He's got some really good ideas. Yeah, I mean, I think my only concern is if he's willing to take the arrows from the party, like me. If I win, I mean, I will probably get JFK'd. I won't make it out of my first term if I win, because they will primary. They'll probably try and get a Democrat to run against me, and the party will help them, which is what I think about Moed. We'll talk about that here in a second. But this was right at the end. This one, Elizabeth Williams comes in second. I can't believe how bad David Waters did. I think his political candidacy stuff is over now, which is a shame, because David Waters is a really good guy, very smart guy, very knowledgeable of how procedure works, um, very aware of how things are corrupt, especially in the party, and he's always willing to call people out. Uh, I know Abdul doesn't like him, but we know it's because of that whole Marion County Fairground stuff and David Waters calling out Cindy Maury and Abdul. So, without further ado, let's talk about my primary. I didn't have one. Obviously, I ran unopposed, but very promising numbers. Very promising numbers. Here I am. I had 1,320 votes. A lot, honestly. Not a lot, actually. Not a lot, but a lot. And I'll explain why in a second. So, Moed, you know, beat the brakes out of Shidale, which we knew was going to happen. Shidale had no money at all, um, for mailers, for door hangers, for any of that. Could not get the word out about themselves. When the precinct numbers come out, I know which places I will be avoiding on spending any money on whoever voted for Sarah Scheidel. I'm going to guess it's mostly people from downtown, um, in that. in that precinct, which is fine. I don't really mind. Because there's going to be some hardcore lefties that will just vote Democrat no matter what, even though I have some amazing ideas. Not just the top three that's on my door hanger. I got like, I don't know, 10 or 15 of them. We have not even begun yet. This was not even, this wasn't even the appetizer. This was bread, not even buttered bread. The butter hasn't even come out. You got your dry bread. That's what you get. I haven't even brought out the butter yet. And don't you worry, because I'm going to butter your bread. I might leave this in there. So, combined though, um, they got 1260. And what did I get again? I got 1320. So if the election was that day, you would be looking at a new state rep. Me. But this is where I get worried, obviously, because I'm not taking this lightly. I want to show you guys something. This is Justin Moed in 2022. Let's just look at the primary numbers. 1482. 1482. So he only had 1200 this time. This might be the lowest that he had, because this was what? That's 2018 in the primary. I'm not going to look at the 1412, but you know, 2016, that was a presidential year, so we knew that was going to happen. But it's always been 1640. This is the lowest he's ever had, even combined for the primary, which is very interesting. I think people are starting to notice that he's not doing anything, and it makes sense. But um, don't worry about this. Is wrong. All right. I don't know why they haven't updated this, but this was my favorite part. Someone posted this on their Twitter. Moed will face Stephen Whitmer in November. That's right. He's facing me. That's right. I'm not facing him. He's facing me. And Mark, obviously, which we'll talk about here in a second. I mean, I don't know. It's very funny, honestly, because it gives me hope. It gives me a lot of hope, and I hardly ever talk about this because it's just me and my loyal followers and anybody else that's watching this right now. But I will need your help to get me over the finish line. I really will, but I'm not going to really get into deeper into that for another couple of weeks until June. So, here's my thoughts on this whole thing. As you can see, during the primary, it's not much. It really happens during the general election. And this is a presidential year, so everybody's going to be out. Now, somebody did ask me, is like, well, how many of those people are Democrat voters that switch to Republican so they can try and get Brown out? It's like, yeah, but those Democrat voters aren't voting for me. That's the thing. They're just one ticket voters. They said they probably wanted Braun or Chambers, and then they wanted Nikki Haley, and that was it. It would be very unlikely that they would have voted for me at the same time. But even like look at this. This was back in 2020. He had 3,100 votes for him in 2020. That was a presidential year. 2024, it is a presidential year, and combined there was only just 1,200 people. Same thing in 2018, 1,600. Nothing really going on. It was the midterms. But then he got, look at the numbers though. It's a lot. That one was kind of weird though. For 2018 because was it that everybody was just voting Democrat and so they went in there? But if you look, progressively he has gotten less votes every single time he has been coming up for an election since 2018, which is promising. Um, so like here in 2020, he had 3,100. He got 9,700. Here in 22, 1,400, and he got 5,100. So we have to expect he's going to get 3 times of what he's getting now. Someone told me that I need to get like 10,000 votes. I don't even know if that's possible. I don't even know if there's 10,000 people that are going to vote in my district. So that'll be interesting. I just need to make sure whoever, and the problem is too, is that not a lot of Republicans are going to be excited to vote for Braun. So I need to get them excited to vote for me. There are a lot of people that are coming out that are going to vote for Trump. And I need to make sure they vote for me as well. Whoever Republicans are voting for, then I need to make sure they're voting for me. And I saw this happen last year during the mayor's race. People were voting for Shreve, but they weren't voting for the city councilor, which made no sense at all. At all. I mean, for real, it did not make any sense. Like, Lisa Schmitz would have beat Jared Evans if the same people that voted for Shreve voted for her, but they didn't, and I don't know why. So there's going to be a lot of door knocking. There's going to be a lot of door hanging. The mailers are going to be the most expensive part, and here's why. I don't know if the HRCC is going to help me. I'm going to have to find somebody to try and get mailers out on the cheap because those companies have a deal with the postal service on having like mass mailing. So you only have to pay like a fraction of what a stamp would be. And because a stamp, even for a postcard, is like 53 cents or something. So if you send out 10,000 mailers, you're talking about over $5,000 just in stamps. Yeah, wrap your head around that, okay? It's not the mailer part that costs a lot of money, those are cheap. It's the postage that kills you. It is awful. Because when I ran for city council last year, even in the primary, I spent like I don't know, $300 or $400 just on stamps because I sent out a mailers from one company and then like, all right, I'm just gonna get the voter list and make my own. So I got labels, I got my own mailers, and then I had to type in every single name by hand. Well, not hand, but through the laptop, get those printed out, get the stamps, put the stamps on there. So I had, $500 or $600 and I spent like hours on this whole thing. I'm not gonna bore you with any of that crap, but just to let you know, like running a campaign is not cheap and once you do mailers, because I was getting mailers like crazy from Todd Young and Philip Clay, it was just bananas. But here's the most important thing I think out of the entire campaign that we're going to have to pay attention to, which I will be ready for. What are the negative ads going to be like? Because there's not a lot of people that like me, and I've said some things that people don't like, and I know there's going to be negative ads on me. The question is, how many of those will be? Because John Schmitz, who had run, he had negative ads on him of saying like, oh, he's going to take your guns away. And then there was a robocall by Justin Moed of the same thing. He's like, oh, he's going to uh, eliminate abortions and take your guns away. And I was like, well, first off, there was nothing on his platform about that. And that was at the time I was helping him too. It's like he's never talked about it because the abortion question did get brought up, and there is no real answer to it. He's like, and he even said, "It's like that's not even part of my platform. I'm trying to get the roads fixed right now." And this was before the whole property tax thing too, which I will let you guys know something on that. I think the information that I found is going to be fascinating for next year's property taxes. But so after the prime, I couldn't even. I'll just tell you real quick, a few minutes on what my experience was with the primary. I really didn't get to do anything because it kept raining. Every time I would go to a voting location, it would start raining. So I just laid out my signs the night before. There were no signs out, and then the following morning, I was going to go out because I need to save my sandwich board, and I didn't really get a chance to use it that much. So, and I don't want to get rained on because it's not that cheap, so I need to save it for the general. But then I was rotating around to make sure that my signs were okay and nobody messed around with them. And then I found at Thatcher Park someone had moved one of them and put them in a playground. I was like, what the hell is this all about? Well, that was kind of wild because I missed a location because I actually ran out of I ran out of stakes. I had like 5 more signs, but I didn't have anywhere to plant. I didn't have any way of planting them because those things are like $8 each, so I didn't get a whole lot of them. I miscalculated my signs. Some got 1, some got 2, some got 3. Thatcher Park I hit really hard because it's got a nice driveway down there. That will definitely be a spot that I will need help with. Um, just a plan. If anybody wants to go out, you don't even have to talk to anybody if you don't want to. I just need somebody there handing out marketing and stuff, or just having the merch. I'll get you merch. I'll get you a hat. I'll get you a shirt. I don't care. So after that, I after the primary, or when it ended at 6 o'clock, I went and started getting all my signs, and one of them was missing at a school in Garfield Park on off Lincoln, whatever. And then one of them at the Garfield Park center, I forgot what it's called. Um, someone had their dog take a giant shit right underneath my sign, which was pretty impressive, honestly, because there were a bunch of signs all around mine. It's like that means you would have had to physically bring your dog over there and make sure that he took a shit right there. It's like, dude, I'm paying attention to everything. You think I wouldn't expect it? I mean, get a little bit creative. Put a landmine over there, in an explosive one. If you're gonna try that stuff, like I'm paying attention to make sure what I do and don't step on. Plus, it was raining, so I would be able to just slide it on the grass and get it off of there. But then on my way home, to get or not on my way home, but I was gonna pick up more signs. There was a fire on the highway. A semi truck had caught fire about a half a mile from the Harding exit going 465 west, and I was stuck there for 3 hours. Literally 3 hours. I'm in one spot. Which tells, I got so pissed off. I'm like, you know what? I might change my priority for my bills. NDOT, you're on the list, all right? I'm paying attention to you. You're annoying me because there is no way to get around there at all. There's a bunch of construction over there, and I've been saying this for a long time. If you don't have an emergency lane and you have a situation like that, there's no way to get around. So I'm sure you had miles and miles of people backed up over there. So I didn't even get. Then I got invited to go onto the mouthwash show at 9:30, and I was on that until I don't know 11 o'clock or something. We were on there for 2 hours. I made a lot of good jokes. I was at my top form, but I was definitely much more relaxed. And remember, it's entertainment. Don't take everything so literally. I'm just having fun with stuff. But then the next day, I was going to get the rest of my signs. And then, listen, these places are ruthless. Not a single one I found was there. So it was at a golf course, it was at a school, and it was at where was the third one? Oh, it was at a park center, and all three of them. And then I forgot mine at the Franklin Township and the City Council. I had like one at each place, and I go over there, and they're gone too. I was like, man, I remember last year at the primary, people had them up for like a week. I thought you had a couple of days until you could, then you could throw them away. Like I remember seeing an Angela Grablowski sign on Rockville for a year. Nobody complained about that. But some of the bigger ones, they're not gonna be able to pull out. Like I went to Thatcher Park, and a lot of the smaller ones were just pulled up and put on the ground. But then you had like the big ones that were staked in there, and they were still there's like no one's gonna be pulling that one out. No one wants to hurt themselves. But it was a lot of fun. I hoping that the weather holds up during the general. Obviously, we have just under 180 days until the general election. So if there is anybody that wants to help, that wants to do door hanging, of course, we're going to be having phone call stuff too, which I will be participating in. We're going to try and not annoy people so much. So I'm still coming up with a plan. I am literally doing this by myself currently. Everything that I have done by myself, except for, some people do help with door hanging and door knocking. Did have a little help. So thank you for the two people that did that for me. But this coming up in the late summer and early fall, we're going to go crazy hard. Even before that, we will be going a little bit hard. And like I said before, we haven't even reached the appetizer course yet. We're just bread, not even butter yet. We're just getting started. A lot of great ideas. I'm going to end up redoing the website with a little bit more pizzazz. I'm going to get more in, I don't know. I can't say it right now because I don't want anybody taking my plans yet. It's still very early. It's only 2 days from the primary. I'm getting tired. I haven't even eaten din din yet. So just to give a heads up, if you're still watching, the city council will finally be back in session next Tuesday on the 13th. I will be there in person, checking it out. Then I might do a review video, but then we got 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks of city council meetings back to back to back. And depending if they meet or not, I will be doing videos on that. There probably won't be a Whitty review video for a little bit unless something crazy happens. Then I will update things with you. I will be having a video on property taxes, though. Very excited for that one. You will be very surprised of what I find and what I predict. So, just to wrap this up real quick, if anybody's interested in helping me, it doesn't have to be right now. It'll be in the following months. If you want to help me do anything with my campaign, just give me a ring, give me an email. You can contact me through the website. You can DM me on Facebook, DM me through Twitter. A lot of you guys already know my personal Twitter and my personal Facebook, probably. If not, just go to the candidate page for the Facebook, and then just reach out. I'm not even asking for money. I'm just asking for your time. I think that's much more important than money. I mean, don't get me wrong, money is good, and I'll gladly take it. But we're not even at that stage yet. I barely spent any money on this thing because I was running unopposed. But I will need money for the primary, even though I anticipate I will be self-funding depending on what the HRCC does. But I will not bore you anymore. That is all I got. So until next time.